Good evening. Imagine a peaceful place where silence is the main feature. You barely hear a sound apart from your breathing. Moreover, there are no dangerous animals to worry about, like in the tropical rainforest. This is the Araucanía region, in the south of Chile, well known by its monkey possum tree, or Araucaria. This territory is located in the temperate forest of southern South America. I've been researching this area because it can tell us a different story about the human relationship with the forest and trees. Indeed, forest historians have normally addressed the forest in terms of exploitation and political control, or environmental injustice. However, the Araucanía of the first half of the 20th century shows that humans could genuinely care about the natural environment and about the other, such as the indigenous and the poor. These experiences could be useful for our current anxieties around climate change, since they show us that our relationship with the other and with nature has not necessarily been a negative one. I will demonstrate my point with two cases. The first one, I have titled it Protecting Nature. Historians have normally criticized the state for not doing enough in the protection of the forest resources, especially during the first half of the 20th century. Forest rangers, especially, have been criticized for seeing the trees as crops to be exploited. However, in the Araucanía region, evidence suggests that important efforts were deployed to protect the forest. This was considered a key resource for the economic and ecological stability of the country. For example, sources show that foresters were ready to clash with other governments or non-government agents if the forest was at stake. In June 1916, journalists accused foresters of the Villarrica Forest Reserve of mistreating agents from a settling commission. According to the note, they used sticks and stones to expel them from the reserve. However, according to other informants, they only stopped the commission by placing themselves at the entrance of the conservation unit. We will never know if the usage of the force was true or not, or if sensationalist interests were behind the news. But what is certain is that the efforts of foresters to stop other agents in entering into reserves could be common. These people were normally seen as a threat to the forest. On the other hand, the efforts of foresters in overseeing the burning of trees for agricultural purposes in summer can be impressive for today's highly connected world. In an epoch when almost no telephones and roads existed, that foresters still managed to control landholders in the clearance of the forest is admirable. At least 2 visits per landowner occurred, one to see if the place was apt to be burned, and second to see if everything has been doing according to the law. Finally, I have found evidence of landowners offering their services ad honorem as forest rangers to protect the forest. In fact, to work with no wage could be common among foresters, since sometimes occurred that they had to work for free for several months. The state was simply too poor to afford such services. Moving on to my next case, titled Protecting the Other. Forest rangers, especially in colonial settings, have been criticized for being too strict in the reenactment of the law, and for blaming sometimes traditional societies for destructing the natural environment with their economic activities. However, the Araucanía region has evidence that foresters could adapt the fines to the personal context of the people. For instance, in one case, the farmer was too poor to pay for the fine and he was forgiven. In another case, the farmer was illiterate and thus unable to read the forest law. Again, he was forgiven. On the other hand, foresters could praise Indigenous for their skills in managing ecologically the Araucaria, or monkey possum tree. According to the forester Enzo Baquedano, having them within the forest reserves could be helpful to maintain such a tree. Even though I have not found more evidence about these declarations towards indigenous people, the silence of documents could also mean that they were in effect not criticized for such behavior. In fact, Chilean farmers were the one heavily critiqued for destroying the land. something that can be proved with plenty of evidence. All these cases are interesting because they suggest that the state not necessarily adopts a top-down approach as has been normally accused. In conclusion, I hope to have shown that the human being can protect the environment and even the other, despite the human and non-human constraints. The Araucanía case suggests that the past can be useful for our present, especially in terms of collaborating with other cultures or ethnicities in the protection of our common home, which is the earth. We have reasons to be hopeful. Now I will leave you with my colleague, Lin Zhang. She will talk about social enterprise and social enterprise law and how it contributes to the understanding of our current climate anxieties. Thank you very much.